The global trading system has just cracked in a place no one expected. For 30 years, the world believed globalization had built itself into something unshakable, a machine that moved on its own, immune to politics, stable by design. But in a matter of months, one of its most important pillars has started to collapse. And the shock is coming from a country the West once considered its safest long-term bet: India. For years, Washington, Brussels, and Tokyo all pointed to India as the great replacement for China. Young, fast-growing, democratic, and supposedly eager to align with the United States. It was the perfect candidate to become the planet's next industrial engine. Analysts wrote optimistic reports, global CEOs toured Bangalore, and investment funds pushed billions into India's technology and manufacturing sectors. The story was simple: India is the next China, but friendly. That story didn't just fall apart, it shattered. Donald Trump's return to the White House didn't simply shift American priorities. It detonated the U.S. strategy that had been carefully built around New Delhi. What 12 months ago was described as an unbreakable partnership suddenly became a battlefield. The new American tariff package hit the Indian economy like a sledgehammer. Electronics, pharmaceuticals, textiles, gems, the industrial backbone of India's exports were paralyzed almost overnight. According to India's Ministry of Commerce, exports to the United States fell nearly 40% in just 5 months, the steepest collapse in 2 decades. In August alone, India lost more than $3 billion in revenue. By September, layoffs spread across Bangalore, Surat, and Ahmedabad. Factories that once worked non-stop were reduced to 4-day weeks. A third of India's electronics exporters hovered on the edge of closure. Credit tightened. Logistics companies demanded cash up front. Contracts with U.S. partners quietly dissolved. And that was only the first wave. Foreign capital, the fuel behind India's tech boom, began disappearing fast. For years, American and European funds pumped billions into Indian software firms, logistics startups, biotech labs, and fintech companies. But as the trade war escalated, venture giants like Tiger Global and Sequoia froze entire investment rounds. Dozens of startups suddenly had less than 3 months of operating cash. Planned IPOs vanished. Emergency layoffs began. What had been one of the world's most vibrant innovation ecosystems became fragile, cash-starved, and uncertain. The pressure spread into India's domestic economy. The rupee fell to historic lows. Inflation passed 7% for the first time in 3 years. Economists warned openly of an internal recession triggered by external shocks. India's growth model, heavily dependent on foreign demand and steady dollar inflows, cracked at its foundation. Small business owners noticed fewer customers. Middle-class families cut spending. Vehicle sales dropped. Smartphone purchases flattened. Even major e-commerce platforms recorded their first quarterly decline in years. Fear had seeped into everyday economic life. International markets didn't help. Major credit rating agencies warned that continued tensions with Washington could lead to a downgrade of India's sovereign rating, a move that would make external financing significantly more expensive. At the same time, Southeast Asian competitors aggressively courted manufacturers leaving India, offering tax breaks and priority infrastructure. New Delhi realized it wasn't just in trouble, it was losing ground fast. Then came the unexpected twist. China, India's historic rival and regional competitor, extended a hand. What began as quiet discussions at the BRICS Plus summit became a geopolitical shockwave. According to reports from the South China Morning Post, Beijing proposed expanding intra-BRICS trade in national currencies and establishing a shared export support fund. For an India suffocating from the loss of its main export market, the offer was a lifeline. Within weeks, India and China signed a cooperation memorandum that would have been unthinkable a year ago. Chinese state-owned banks opened new credit lines for Indian companies. Joint industrial zones near Nepal were announced. Plans to expand the port of Mumbai moved forward. And for the first time, India began settling major export contracts in yuan. 70 Indian companies, mostly electronics and pharmaceutical manufacturers, shifted to Chinese currency within 2 months. Trade volume in yuan nearly tripled. China didn't stop there. Beijing began redirecting manufacturing orders, originally intended for Chinese factories, toward Indian partners under a new BRICS industrial framework. For India, it was a chance to recover lost production and secure new technology. For China, it was a strategic masterstroke, economic influence wrapped in development aid. In Washington, alarms went off immediately. Trump publicly called India the new China and signaled new tariffs, this time targeting Indian steel and textiles. Congress prepared legislation to block imports from any country participating in BRICS supply chain initiatives. But New Delhi had already made its choice. In an interview with ANI, Prime Minister Narendra Modi stated that India will no longer depend on a single geopolitical partner and will pursue a multipolar model without fear. Leaks to Politico India revealed that New Delhi is negotiating to link its banking system to China's CIPS, the alternative to the Western-controlled SWIFT network. If finalized, it would mark one of the largest financial realignments of the century. China also offered India preferential prices on solar energy equipment, microchips, and industrial hardware. A joint rare earth exchange was launched. A new pharmaceutical certification agency now allows Indian medicines to enter China without U.S. intermediaries. At the next BRICS summit, 3 major agreements are expected, including the long-discussed BRICS Standard, a unified internal market that operates completely outside U.S. and European influence. Analysts from the Council on Foreign Relations warned that Washington may be on the verge of losing permanent access to one of the fastest-growing markets in the world. Because if India fully aligns with BRICS, the entire American Indo-Pacific strategy collapses. And yet, while this realignment accelerates, another front in the global conflict is opening. A 50-page bipartisan report from the U.S. House Select Committee accuses Beijing of manipulating global mineral markets, using lithium, cobalt, and rare earth dominance as a geopolitical weapon. The report claims China deliberately pushes prices down to kill foreign producers and protect its own industries. Lawmakers are pushing for domestic mining expansion, strategic reserves, and legally enforced minimum prices. This is no longer just a trade war. It is the beginning of a complete restructuring of the global economic order. The old system, built around the dollar, U.S. demand, and Western financial dominance, is being challenged rapidly. India, once celebrated as the West's great ally, is now walking alongside Beijing toward a parallel system built on national currencies and non-Western supply chains. And for dozens of nations frustrated by sanctions and tariffs, BRICS is starting to look less like an experiment and more like a doorway out of U.S. influence. Before we continue, please take 1 second to subscribe to Maple States. We're trying to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and your support genuinely helps this channel grow. Now the question is simple. Can the United States adapt fast enough? Has India made a historic mistake, or is the West that failed to understand where the world was heading? And are we, as citizens, prepared to face the costs of rebuilding industrial and technological independence? Because whether we want it or not, the future is already shifting, and the world we wake up in may be very different from the one we remember.